What's going on, truckers on YouTube? Um, I'm making this video. This is probably my first video in relation to truck driving. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my channel or what I wanted to get out of it. As of right now, all my videos are informational. I decided to make this video for the main reason that the company that I chose to go with this time doesn't really have any videos on YouTube about their company, and if there was any videos, they were all tailored towards more like advertising skits and not actual, independent drivers giving their full honest review, not in front of a company sign. So the company is Barnes Transportation. For about the past 2 weeks, I've been debating going back over the road and getting back into the regional and full OTR division. I was doing just local stuff for about 6 months, so that wasn't really working out money wise. So I was looking into some companies, looking at Live Transportation, Warren Transport, Barnes Transportation, and there was one other one. I think it was Rowan or something like that. But Rowan, however you say it, didn't really offer any lease purchase positions, which is kind of what I was wanting to go towards, and I'll probably explain that in further videos. Live was offering like a $5,000 sign-on bonus paid out the first year, but their equipment wasn't really what I was looking for, and they just really didn't have a whole lot of good reviews as far as individual drivers posting their videos. Warren stayed in contact with me for quite a bit. I discussed with the recruiter that some of the reviews I read and some of the concerns that I had. The only thing that I liked about Warren Transport was that you had the option to book your own loads, and not book your own loads in the sense that you get on these booking websites, broker sites, and actually book your own load with their MC or with their MC number or anything like that. But you had the option to get onto the brokerage boards and look for loads, and then if something piqued your interest, you could give that to your dispatcher. Your dispatcher would make sure that it was an account that they covered, and if it was an account that they covered, then they could book that load for you and go about it that way. And that seemed really good. But the overall driver reviews between Indeed, Truckers Report, and YouTube, there was just so many that were just so negative. And not every truck driver that posts a review is 100% honest in the review, and it sounds like you're calling people liars, but you're really not. But everybody has their own take on the situation. So I took all the reviews that I had read and put together a comprised list of what the most common issues were, and the most common issues were weekends and night dispatch. And ran those across to the recruiter, and he got with the operations manager and stuff and asked him the questions, and he got back to me, and the dude was really friendly, which, as most recruiters are. But as far as taking my concerns, going to the operations manager, and then getting the answers, or the best answers that he could get for my questions, and then calling me back and discussing those with me, I haven't really seen that too many times at other companies. Other companies are more or less, well, I'm not really sure about that. I doubt that's the situation. It was probably just an issue with that driver, and they don't really ever push to get any information for you. So in the end, I ended up going with Barnes Transportation, and that's probably what I'll label this video as: is Barnes Transportation first week review or something like that. But I live in North Carolina. I live on the coast, so it was a lot easier for me to make a decision after it was all said and done, to go with a company that was in North Carolina. Barnes Transportation and Warren and Live, they all had small, well, not small yards, but they had very minimal yards, I guess I would say. I think Live's main hub was in Iowa and Florida or something like that. Warren only had their main hub in Iowa, and then Barnes Transportation only had their main hub in North Carolina, in Wilson, North Carolina. And out of all that, it was just it didn't make much sense for me to trek halfway across the country to orientation, then something go astray, and then now I'm stuck in halfway across the country from my home, and I can't get back. So the mindset that I had was, okay, I will go with Barnes Transportation. They're the closest. They're about an hour and 45 minutes away from my house. I will ride up there to the orientation. I will go through the orientation, see what they say, ask all my questions, look at the equipment, and go over any minor details and any major concerns that I had and get the answers for those. And at the end of the orientation, I can make my determination if I wanted to stay or if I wanted to go back home and try out for Warren, which would have been next on the list. And as of today, which is Wednesday, July the 14th, I am still in Wilson. The reason for this is day number one, they just kind of go over the slideshows on this TV about all the different things that Barnes Transportation does. Just pretty much class type stuff. And then day number two is pretty much finishing up some of the class type stuff and then going over their equipment. A lot of companies use Qualcomm. There's been a lot of issues with Qualcomm, so a lot of companies have been going to different programs, different software as far as ELD and communication and stuff like that. Sorry, I got dipped in. But Barnes Transportation uses what is called Samsara. So it is basically just like a mobile app, rather than the whole Qualcomm unit being inside the truck, mounted on the dash. Everything's done from a mobile device. You can use it from your phone, or if you have your own tablet with service, you can put it on there. I'm not sure. I didn't ask if they have any tablets to give out, but I'm pretty sure if they did, it's not going to be top-notch tablets. It's going to be something like the cheapest tablets that a cellular service provider can give with so many trucks. So it'd probably be something like Galaxy Tab A or the cheapest Apple or something. That I'm pretty sure it'd probably just be a Samsung. So that was everything on day number two. And as I stated previously, on day number two is usually when you get your truck. Now, the only issue that I'm seem to be having with Barnes Transportation is their equipment. So I went LP, LM, lease purchase, lease maintenance, and they told me kind of right off the bat that they had minimal equipment to choose from, which ended up being they had no equipment to choose from. Their trucks are either labeled LP for lease purchase, or their trucks are labeled LM for lease maintenance. You can't use one for the other. It don't work like that. So basically, they have their company trucks, and then their company trucks they also purchase um, lease maintenance trucks, and the lease maintenance trucks are tailored, kind of like the company trucks are, where they're inside that fleet division. You can't do anything to the truck. You can't. It's pretty much like you're being a company driver, but making the payment on the truck. Which I'll explain why I chose to go that route versus a lease purchase. So, on the company side, it seemed like their company paychecks were averaging right about $750 to $800 a week, which is not bad money if you live a normal lifestyle. And what I mean by normal is that like bare minimum, your car's paid off, you're just renting a little tiny apartment or something like that, or even you just living on the truck. The lease purchase and the lease maintenance paid 67% of the line haul, which most companies will usually pay between 60 and 65% of the line haul. So if you take an average of 65% of the line haul, it's only 3% more. So it's not that much more, but it is more than what most companies would offer. And it's 67% whether you're a lease purchase, whether you're a lease maintenance, or an owner operator with your own truck that you brought into the company. And the lease purchase side, they really didn't have any trucks at all. On day number 2, there was 4 people in orientational day 1. One guy was in there for orientation for dump truck driver, so he was going to be local. So he was only required to do the 1-day orientation. That left 3 people. One guy had already worked there in the past as a lease purchase driver, and I think he was on a heavy haul division or something like that. And his truck was set up to where he could only run that specific trailer. He couldn't switch off between dry van or any other trailer that they had to pull. And he said that he had issues with his truck, and not only did he have issues with his truck, but he was starting to have issues with loads and revenue. And he ended up quitting, and he turned his truck in and walked away, and he came back for orientation, except this time he came back for the lease maintenance position. The other guy, he lived about 2 hours away as well, and he came in originally for the lease purchase position. And we all sat down and talked, all 3 of us that were there. The guy that had quit and come back, me, and then the other gentleman that lived 2 hours away. And we had all kind of decided that lease maintenance was probably the better way to go. Their company has it set up to where if you're unhappy with the lease maintenance position and you wanted to go LP, then you could switch, and there would be no repercussions for that. You would basically just bring your truck back, and as long as they had a lease purchase truck available that fit your needs or suited you, then you could get into that truck and continue rolling on, and then they would just switch the paperwork over in the system so that it showed that you were LP. Another reason why we decided to do lease maintenance was, in the end, between lease purchase and lease maintenance, it was pretty much almost exactly the same all the way across the board. The only difference was that in a lease maintenance position, the driver is not responsible for any maintenance on the truck. So if there's any major mechanical issues that are or are not covered under warranty, then the company pays for all the repairs. And as far as regular routine maintenance goes, I wouldn't have to pay for tires or oil changes or anything like that. The company would pay for all that, and then all I really had to do was just suffer the downtime, which nobody likes, but it's a whole lot easier to suffer the downtime versus suffering the downtime and biting the bullet on the funds for the repairs or maintenance. So you know, after putting everything together and talking, and all of us talking and everything, I think everybody in the end pretty much decided that lease maintenance was the best way to go, at least for now, starting out with the company, because it's a family owned and operated company to the point where everybody that you talk to during orientation pretty much has Barnes as their last name. And I'm not saying that's always a good thing, but it's not always a bad thing either. And you have a company that is almost completely run by the family. There's going to be issues, but it's a whole lot better than running for a company where the person who started the company, sold that company off to somebody else, and now you're just a number in the wind, rather than a person behind the steering wheel. So, I mean, we all thought that was a little bit of a plus. Everybody was pretty friendly. For the most part, all the orientations are about the same. If they put you up in a hotel, they tell you that your breakfast is free at the hotel, which that's a given if you stay at a hotel that serves breakfast. They provide lunch, and they provide transportation to and from the hotel if you don't have any transportation. The hotel that they use is a Holiday Inn and Suites, and it's pretty decent. I mean, it's not the best, but it's actually, it's not a Motel 6 or what are the other, Super 8 or something like that. So it's actually a fairly decent hotel. It's got a pool. It's got a KFC and a Taco Bell, not even 5 yards away, either way you go. So everything's within walking distance as far as food for dinner. They provided pizza the first night or the first day for lunch. The next day they ordered Panera bread for everybody. And then today as well, they also purchased lunch for me. I am actually the only person still here in the hotel. The gentleman that quit and came back, he had already had his truck the first day. I think he had already had it pre-picked out. So he just had to finish his first day of orientation like the dump truck driver did. He didn't have to go through all the Samsara stuff and the tablet and all that, the mobile app stuff. So he already had that down pat. So after the first day, he already had his truck pre-picked out, and I guess he went ahead and got on the road. The second day of orientation yesterday, it was just me and the other gentleman that lived 2 hours away. When I got at orientation yesterday morning, the guy brought me in the office, and he was pretty much just like, "Hey, I got something I think you like. If you want to go check it out, you can go check it out, and we'll, if you decide that you like it, then just grab the keys out of it, bring it in here, and I'll lock you into that truck." And I said, okay. And it ended up being a 2020 Freightliner Coronado. It was like a ice blue color. I don't really have any pictures of it. My wife took a picture of it. She was with me for orientation. She sat through it as well. So, I mean, it was nice. It was not really maybe might be a little more than a year old, but not much. It was either right under a year old or just over a year old, depending on when they purchased the truck. So it doesn't have a whole lot of miles on it. The outside is in pristine condition. The interior of the truck had cigarette burns in the seats, and all leather seats. So it had cigarette burns in the seats. Still had the mattress from the previous person that was in the truck. The mini fridge, it comes with a mini fridge in that truck. And it had food caked up in it. I mean, it was just dirty on the inside. I don't think they had gotten to it at that point as far as the detail process. The guy had made his way around the yard yesterday morning, to wash all the trucks. So I think the truck had gotten washed, but it hadn't got to the point where it was getting detailed on the inside yet. And so basically we just went out there and we just looked at it as it sat. and I liked it. You know, it was kind of what I wanted because I wanted a Freightliner Coronado. But you know, as most people, if you go to a company that has a Freightliner Coronado, they're more than likely going to be like, oh well, you know, that's for this specific division. That's not really available to, you know, lease purchase drivers or lease maintenance drivers. With this company, is not that. If it's there on their lease maintenance side, then you're able to use that truck, and their Freightliner Coronados are able to be used on their lease maintenance side, not on their lease purchase side, but on their lease maintenance side. So I fired the truck up. I mean, we popped the hood, looked under the hood, checked all the fluids and everything, walked around, checked the tires. Some of the tires looked like they needed to be replaced and everything. But overall, it wasn't too much as far as, I guess, maintenance that needed to be done to it. All the fluids were where they were supposed to be. Everything looked pretty much good except for some tires. So I started the truck up, and it had a check engine light. It didn't have a check engine light, but it had an active fault code. And there was no way to pull it up on the dash to see what that fault code was, like there is on Freightliner Cascadias, where it has the dial on the steering wheel column, where you can, you know, go through the settings and check and see what the active fault code was. So after we looked it over, me and my wife decided that that was the truck that we wanted, which turned out to be the best thing that we could have done, because they actually did not have any other trucks at all. And I'll explain that here in a minute about the other driver. So we went ahead and grabbed the keys and took it back inside to the guy, whose name was Larry. He was the one doing the orientation, and he come back, and I told him, I said, hey, I like the truck. We want to go ahead and give you the keys and everything. I said, there's only a couple concerns that we have, is that it looks like it might need some tires, and it has an active fault code on it and everything. And he said, okay. He said, we'll get it over to the shop. He said probably about after lunchtime, he was just going to have me drive it over to the shop and get them to pull it up and see what was wrong with it and everything. After lunchtime, he came back and he said, don't worry about it. He said we had a guy come pick it up and drive it over to the shop. He said they wanted to go ahead and do a PM on it as well, and make sure that everything was good to go before I got into it. So they went ahead and took that over there. He was hoping to have it back before the end of the day, but that ended up not being the case. So he was like, just go back to the hotel room for the night. He said, we got the truck over there. He said, go back to the hotel room. Hopefully be back in the morning. This morning. So I was like, okay. So I went back to the hotel. My wife ended up having to go back home to the house to take care of the animals and go to work and everything for her job that she has. So I got up this morning. They let me use the company van that they had to drive over to the hotel and drive back. He said that he would give me a call if the truck was ready, and if the truck wasn't ready, then to just make sure that I was back over there and checked out of the hotel by the checkout time. So I said, okay. So I sat around until about, I think it was about 10:10 this morning is when I turned the keys in for the hotel room, and I headed back over there. I asked him, he said the truck wasn't ready yet. He said that he had went over there that morning on his way in and talked to them about it, and what had happened, not what had happened, but sorry, he said that he had talked to the people over at the shop on his way in, and that they had not gotten to the truck yet. So he said that he didn't know how long it was going to take, or if they was even going to be able to get it all done today. So I said, okay. So I went up in the driver's lounge and pretty much just hung around probably until about, I think it was 2 p.m., a little after 2. He come into the driver's lounge and he said, I hate to do this to you. He said, I got one of the other guys over the shop to get on the horn with them and see where they were at and get them on the ball with it. And he said that they had finally got the truck in, that it for sure needed steer tires, and it needed either 1 or 2 drive tires, which the tires Barnes takes care of at the Barnes yard. They actually have a shop there that takes care of tires and brakes and body work and stuff like that. So he said that they had got it in and determined that it needed tires for sure, and that they was working on the rest of it. So he told me, it was like, the best thing I could do is tell you, just go ahead and hop back in the van, go back over to the hotel room for the night, and hopefully by tomorrow, well, hopefully by the end of today, that everything as far as the PM when the truck will be done, and that the truck could come back over either this evening or in the morning so that they could put the tires on it, and then I can get in it. The other guy, hold on, let's spit this out. The other gentleman that was in orientation that wanted to do the LP but ended up doing the lease maintenance with us, he, by the end of yesterday, the second day of orientation, he still didn't have a truck. It was probably, I think it was about 3:30-ish yesterday that they had come back and said that they had a truck that they wanted him to look at. So it was an international, and it was an LP truck. They didn't have any more lease maintenance trucks. So it was an LP truck. So we got back after meeting our driver manager and everything, and I walked back in, got all my stuff out of my wife's car, put it in the company van to get ready to come to the hotel, and he called me over and he was like, "Hey man," he was like, "can you help me look at this?" I'm not saying anything bad about the guy, but a lot of truck drivers aren't really mechanically inclined, and I'm not going to say that I'm some kind of master mechanic, because I'm not. Well, I'm not a master diesel technician or anything like that, but I do work on cars and I do work on diesels, and I can pretty much get under the valve covers and stuff like that, but I haven't really done a whole lot of motor rebuilds or anything like that, and a tractor. So he just wanted me to come over there and help him look it over and make sure everything was all right. He had issues with the inside of the truck. He said that when he had got in it, the battery light was on and everything, and it had a check engine light, and that the inside was dirty, kind of like the Coronado was, and the outside was pretty decent looking. It was an international LT truck. I didn't get the year off of it, but it was an international LT, and it had to have been at least 30 years old, because it had 455,000 miles on the truck. So if there's any consolation to you, their LP trucks are the company trucks that they decommission, and that's what their lease purchase drivers can get into. Kind of like with any other company, I don't really know too many companies that'll give a brand spanking new truck to a lease purchase driver. It's usually trucks that come off the line that still have a little bit of warranty left on them. This one didn't have much warranty left on it. I think most warranties are like 500,000 or 600,000 miles, depending on the manufacturer. So he didn't have much warranty left on his. So I told him, and that was his biggest concern, was the mileage on the truck. And I told him, I said, well, here's what I can tell you. I said, first of all, you need to look over the truck, top to bottom. Don't really worry about the condition of the inside of the truck, because they can give you new mattresses, and the trucks can be detailed. And if you need a seat, if you need a seat or anything like that, usually they can get that stuff to you as long as you ask for those things before you sign anything on that truck, as far as paperwork goes, contract wise. And he was like, "Oh, that makes sense." And I was like, "Yeah." But I was like, you need to make sure everything is good to go before you also sign any kind of paperwork. I was like, you need to check the oil, you need to check the clutch, you need to check the brakes, you need to check all that stuff before you sign anything. And he was just I think he was at that point where he decided that he was just gonna take the truck, because there was nothing else available. But I could see it that he wasn't comfortable, but he didn't want to sit. So I looked over the truck with him. We walked around. It had 2 new brake chambers on it, which was a good sign. I mean, they were brand new. One of the brake chambers, though, they had installed wrong, and the clamp for the brake chamber was actually resting on the rear leaf. So if he would have hit a bump or something going down the road, it would have popped that retaining bracket off of the brake chamber, and it probably would have just busted all over the interstate or wherever he would have been at that time. So I was like, you just need to make sure that you need to make sure that they rotate that clamp around so that it's not rubbing up against the leaf on the rear axle. And he was like, okay. And we looked, looked like I had a brand new metering valve on the back of the truck for the airlines. Airbags looked pretty decent and everything. All the tires looked good. And then we popped the hood. It had it came with some good upgrades on it. It came with fog lights, which a lot of them don't really come with. So it had fog lights installed on it, and it even had a push bar installed on it. So we popped the hood of the truck, and the first thing right off the bat, it didn't have any coolant in it. Now, it didn't look like there was any mixing in the oil or the coolant reservoir, but the coolant was well below the cold mark on it, to the point where it would have set off the sensor, which that's probably what the active fault or the check engine light was for, was probably low coolant. And I said right off the bat, I said that right there would be a red flag for me. I said, if you don't see any coolant on the ground and you can't really see anything mixing, you got to wonder where the coolant's going. I mean, sometimes it can be the EGR, but other times it could just be getting burnt off. You know, something's clogged up, or something's causing that coolant to burn off. So I was like, I would tell them straight off the bat that no, I don't want this truck until this gets checked out as far as the coolant goes, because there's no leaks anywhere, but yet the coolant's almost empty. Oil looked good on it. It was kind of sooty, but I mean, it wasn't too terribly bad. All the other fluids were good on it, and I mean, the body on it was pretty decent. It hadn't been wrecked, didn't have any major body work done to it, and it came with a battery powered APU built into the truck, so the heat and the AC would run off of that. So it came with some decent stuff. It even came with a refrigerator, and it came with standard outlet plugs in the bunk for TVs and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I left, and he had went back in there to talk to the individual that did the orientation, Larry, and I guess he decided not to take it for whatever reason, because I think the truck was still there this morning. A lot of the trucks look the same, so I don't know if it was exactly the same truck or not, but it looked like it. It even had LP on the side of it, which that's how their trucks are set up. It's like three numbers and then LP. So I'm pretty sure it was that truck, and I think he decided to go a different route. I think one of the ladies said that he had gotten a loaner truck in the meantime, until they got some lease maintenance trucks in that he could choose from. Their biggest thing with the trucks was they were pulling trucks off of their fleet. Something about one of the partnerships they had was ending, so they was pulling 30 some trucks from the yard, from drivers and stuff like that, and then I think some of their trucks were at that point where they needed to go back and get replaced anyway with new trucks. But yeah, I can't say it's like that for every orientation they have, but it seems like the orientation that I got booked into, they just didn't have any equipment. They were struggling to find equipment, and it seemed like that was going to be the issue for the foreseeable future, especially with the market the way that it is on trucks, used trucks, and new trucks, even getting those purchased in and brought in. So yeah, 2 days of orientation has now turned into 3 days. Um, like I said, the orientation went the way that it was supposed to. Now I'm just waiting on the equipment, which I would do anyway. I'm not gonna drive it. I'm not just gonna keep my mouth shut and drive a truck off a lot with a active fault code on it, needing stuff. That would have made me turn around and come back and get a PM on it anyway. So they got me another hotel room for the night. They gave me lunch for today. I mean, overall, they've been really nice, and they have even been very apologetic about the whole truck situation. So I mean, it's not really the best experience, but it's also not the worst experience I've had. I think he said their company boasts about 250 trucks right now. So I mean, that's a mix between LPs, lease maintenance, owner ops, and company drivers. They do dump truck divisions. They do have dedicated accounts. They do run from the port. They also have other local accounts. I think Bridgestone Tires is one of their accounts. John Deere, Club Car, and a couple other places. I can't remember the name of them right now. But I mean, they have some pretty decent main customers as far as hauling for. They do run 48 state. LPs and lease maintenance aren't forced dispatch, which no company is going to force dispatch. But at the same time, if you refuse too many loads, you're going to go to the bottom of the board and you're going to have to wait. The way that they was talking in orientation, they said they usually try to make sure that everybody's pre-planned ahead of time. So even when you're just getting your load that you're running at that point in time, they will already usually have another pre-plan come across for when you deliver. They do broker loads from time to time, and that was a misunderstanding between me and the recruiter that I talked to, and I'm not going to say it was my misunderstanding because I'm pretty sure I heard pretty clear. But the reason why they were on the list with Warren was that they said that I could broker loads as well. And not, like I said, not broker as far as me calling the broker and getting the load under their MC or anything like that, but that if I wanted to, I could get on the brokerage sites and look for loads if I was in a tight spot. And as long as they had an account with them or could get an account pretty easily, then I could get that load. Well, when we met our dispatcher, I brought that up, and they seemed to not like that too well. They said, no, we are not allowed to do that at all. They said the only division that they have that will do that from time to time is the heavy haul division, which that might have been her misunderstanding on that, because if they do it for the heavy haul division, maybe she assumed that they did it for everybody, but that's actually not the case. So that's actually one of the main downsides that I did come across in the 3 days that I've been here is because of that. I don't want to sit here and rant too much. This is my first YouTube video, technically. So really kind of like all over the board. But I just wanted to give my first, I don't even want to say my first week's review because the week's not even done yet. But I mean, as far as me running and making any money this week is probably not going to happen for the lack of the equipment not being ready to go. So the orientation is pretty easy. They do not make you go out and do all the stuff that some of these other bigger companies do, where they'll make you do the duck walk or show proper procedures of climbing in and out of the trailers and in and out of the trucks, 3 points of contact, and then doing a road test. They didn't do that. I'm not saying that they ain't going to do that in the future, and I'm not saying that they haven't done that in the past, but for the orientation that I was present for, that was not the case. The only time we even left the building was to either take a 5-minute break or drive across the yard to meet our dispatcher on day 2. That is the only time we really left the building. So take what you want out of this video. if you live in North Carolina and you want to run with the company out of North Carolina, instead of trekking halfway across the country to a carrier, you can give them a shot. I mean, I'll probably try to post more videos. I'll probably do a second week, a third week, and maybe a 1 month review. I'll try to do settlements and let people see what I'm going for or what I'm getting out of it during that first 30 days. They did tell me that they would defer my payments. So that's another thing, is the deferred payments. Some of the other companies I was with, they deferred payments for the first 30 days. This company don't do that, but this is also the first company that I've been to where the lease purchase and the lease maintenance truck is actually from the company. The first company I did it with was JB Hunt, and they used Quality Companies at that time, the subsidiary of Celadon, their kind of dealership. So I used them, and it was an actual dealership where you go there and you walk around an entire lot of trucks and you pick out your truck and you buy it. It's done. Quality Company. Lease knows how much of a bunch of jumbled bullshit that is. And then the second company I did it with was Epps Transport out of Greensboro, North Carolina, and theirs was kind of the same way. That you could either do like a release, which is where a driver quit or walked away from it, and their truck was available to pick up, and basically you just picked up on their lease where they left off. However many payments I made, whatever work was done on the truck, anything like that carried over to you. Or you could go to Select Trucks of Greensboro, put a deposit down, and pick out a truck that way. So this is actually kind of like the first company I've been with where it's like, no, this is our equipment. This is the equipment that we pull off from the company side that we use to lease purchase. And this is the equipment that we purchase for lease maintenance. So there's no deferment on that. It is basically your first week is deferred, and that week is the week of orientation. Your first payment isn't due until the Friday after. So my orientation was this week, so I wouldn't make a payment on my truck this week, but next Friday my first payment would be due. With me not having a truck yet, my truck being in the shop, and not really knowing when I'm going to get it back, they have went ahead and said that they would defer me for another week. So my payment won't be due next Friday, it'll be due the Friday after. And that's basically just for the fact that whatever I run this week, my settlement next week wouldn't be enough to cover it, so I would be starting off in the hole. So that's why they pushed it back for me like that, which it's pretty nice that they were able to do that and not just be like, oh, tough shit, this is part of trucking. But it was nice that they did that. I think that they could get away with doing a 3-week or 4-week deferment for new people coming in. It's not really something that's impossible to do. Most of these trucks are either paid off or have run their amount of loads to get their money off of these trucks. So I think that's something that they probably could do and get away with just fine, is doing a 3-week or 4-week deferment on payments for people coming into the program to give them time to get some money put back in case something arises and their truck goes down. They have a couple weeks of truck payments that they could put into an account on the side that would cover them while their truck was down. Or if they had a bad week that week, they could pull from that and use that to cover the truck payment. So this video is running almost about 45 minutes long. I'm probably not going to do any editing to it. I'll probably just let it run the way it is. So I do apologize that you're sitting through about 45 minutes of me ranting on. But I mean, if you're interested in Barnes Transportation, you're more than welcome to give them a look and see. Or if you're with a company that you can hold off with and you want to watch a couple more videos that I post about my progress and my truck and everything, and then use that to make a determination. Or you could just give them a call and talk to them yourselves. their recruiting department is fairly small. There's like 2 people. One of them's her last name is Barnes, so she's affiliated with the family, and then the other one is just a normal recruiter, but I guess she's been there for a while. So I mean, it's pretty close knit on their little circle that they have. I mean, I don't want to say anything too bad, because I don't want them to watch this video and think negatively of me. It's just me posting an informational video so that somebody else can make a decision on what they want to do. I know they were talking about their future goal was 500 trucks, and I guess however many trailers, 500 trucks, 500 trailers, and all of them to be seated. But here they are, 250 trucks and orientation, and they have no trucks to give out and anything like that. So yeah, but like I said, I'll post another video next week, or I might even do a walk around video of my truck once I get into it and get it cleaned up and everything. I might even do a before and after video showing you what my truck looked like as I'm getting into it, straight out of the shop and maintenance and all that stuff, versus what it's like after I get it set